Here we are on Uncommon Gift, Chapter 18. Jimmy, Bill, and Mark had a fun week getting to know their music teachers and in getting started. Bill and Mark were making mostly noise, and Jimmy finally being told by his dad that he did not have to practice the drums for 30 hours a day and that they both needed to sleep, at least his dad did. They were all getting excited about Saturday night and going to a real concert. Bill and Mark didn't really have some dress-up clothes, so the moms decided to go shopping on Saturday and at least get a nice dress shirt and a tie to look presentable at the concert. Jimmy had a couple of dress shirts and a sport coat, none of which he hardly ever wore, but he would this Saturday night. Bill and Mark had button-up sweaters they could wear just to look a little more dressed up. All three boys made a trip to the barber shop, courtesy of Daniel Johnson, to make sure they looked sharp. Daniel offered to pick up Mark and his mom as they had plenty of room in their car for two more. Bill and his parents drove themselves, and everyone knew the parking location at Schwartz Auditorium parking lot. The three newcomers arrived at 7:15 as they did not want to be late, and made the folks who made all this possible wait on them. They waited inside the auditorium for the others. Robert Martin greeted them as they entered the foyer, and he was told they were waiting on the Martins and the Masons, and Marshall Dade and his parents, the doctors Douglas and Sharon Dade. Robert could hardly wait for the Martins to arrive, as he had been called earlier in the week by Cassandra Martin and set up a concert date of 4 weeks from today for her world premiere of her new flute and string trio, with two members from the symphony joining her on stage. He could hardly wait to thank her and how the university music faculty was most excited about this new event on their calendar. Robert, this might make the time he had to have a packed house. When the Millers arrived first, all of the introductions were made to the Johnsons, Jimmy, Daniel, and Jane, the Bonds, Bill, William, and Becky, and the Moss family, Mark and Missy, his mom. If their group got any bigger, they were all going to have to get baseball jerseys with the names on the back. Robert thanked Cassandra in front of their crowd for getting ready for a world premiere performance of her own work in 4 weeks, and what a great event that will be. Everyone admitted that they would do their absolute best to be in attendance for that one. Robert said that the university was thinking of having free tickets printed and blocks of 20 tickets distributed to 20 key places in town, so as to have a small way of controlling the attendance, as the hall only seated less than 500 people. Seating the night would be first come, first served, after all the patrons with tickets were seated. At least it sounded like a good plan, but most know the saying, man plans and God laughs. Robert ushered the guests into the auditorium and found them some good seats for the three performances on piano that evening. First on the program was a new freshman performer, a young lady from Japan, Song Liu Chao. She had already had one concert on campus that amazed everyone. On top of her music minor, she had a double major in physics and mathematics. Second on the program was Bruce Baxter, a chemistry major with a biology minor on his schedule. Another gifted performer, as was his sister Natalie, who graduated 2 years ago and was already a violinist with the Cincinnati Symphony. The third and final performer was a senior, Mary Margaret Olson, who was a music major with a minor in molecular biology. She had already signed on as a Deutsche Grammophon recording artist and was off at year's end to tour Europe after the release of her first all-Mozart album. She was the campus star this year. Robert had told everyone that this would be Miss Olson's last free concert, and you would have to buy a ticket or an LP of her work from then on. Everyone was impressed, to say the least. I think the most surprised were Jimmy, Bill, and Mark, as they were beginning to see what a lucky break they just walked into, and that they had better work harder at music than anything else they had done before. This could be a real ticket to something very good for them and their parents. The lights went down in the auditorium and the performances began. To say that they were magnificent would be an understatement. Miss Chow played a Beethoven program, Mr. Baxter was all Schubert, and Miss Olson surprised everyone with music she had transcribed by John Barry of movie composition fame. She wanted to show that one could be serious, but also have a fun side, and that film music could also be stunning as well. She also wanted to show that classically trained musicians could also have fun with other genres of music and still be serious. Everyone had a marvelous time. Charles and Cassandra had a surprise for everyone, as they had invited everyone back to their home, and they were going to have an ice cream program catered by Mario's again, with some recipes from Italy and Germany that would be a surprise to all. The three new families were about to be in for a surprise of their lives when they saw the Miller's house. The other families didn't say a word, but every new family had a slip of paper with the address and some brief descriptions for everyone, and they were off to the Millers. The three young men who just missed going to jail were in for a big surprise. Bill Mason took a large waffle cone with fresh strawberries. Douglas Dade was into chocolate with fudge topping on his cone. Daniel Johnson was vanilla with some toffee topping, some cashews and whipped cream. William Bond made a banana split, vanilla and strawberry and pineapple. Once everyone was at the Millers, the new families could just stand outside the cars and gawk at the superb home the Millers owned. Missy Moss said it could have been from Gone with the Wind. For many, it just left them speechless. But they were urged by Bobby's dad, Bill, to go inside and let's have a party, so they all did. Once inside, Mario and his folks had set up the parlor with 5 tables and chairs. Then his crew lined up everyone in front of their table with more flavors of ice cream than Howard Johnson's ever had. Every kind of fresh topping of fruits, nuts, real whipped cream, large and small waffle cones, sugar cones, and bowls to hold large sundaes, or banana splits if that was your thing. Everyone took their time, except for the boys, as they were quick to decide and found a table to sit and enjoy their creations. The adults took more time to decide, but managed just fine, and the women seemed to enjoy more simple fare with just 1 or 2 different kinds of ice cream with some specialty fruit and plenty of whipped cream. The Millers were very simple with vanilla, with real chocolate shavings, with plenty of whipped cream in large bowls. The room was so very quiet, with so many in one place, as everybody was in full concentration and enjoyment. One thing Bobby Mason did do was bring a cassette of his last practice session with Diane Davis of the school band book, and was in hopes of being able to play it on Charles' superb Macintosh stereo with the magical M9 speakers. He had the best cassette deck ever made in his system, the Nakamichi Dragon, that every audiophile wished they could afford. When everyone was finished, Bobby walked over to the adults' table and pulled out his tape, and he asked Charles if he would play his practice tape. Of course, Charles was most pleased to do so. Charles rose and asked everyone when they were finished to cross the foyer and head into Charles' study for some special music. Most everyone was just finishing up, but Charles, Marshall Dade, and Bobby headed out first, and Charles turned on all of the equipment, took the tape from Bobby, and rewound the tape that Bobby forgot to do before he left home. Charles inserted it into the Dragon and waited for all the guests to enter his study. He asked everyone to try and get fairly centered in the room Some were standing behind his desk toward the back. He announced that they were all going to hear a recorded performance of Bobby Mason on his clarinet and his neighbor, Diane Davis, on violin, music from their middle school concert music book, the performance of which would be at the end of May. Charles asked Bobby if he was ready. As ready as I'll ever be, said Bobby nervously, not knowing if everyone would applaud or laugh. Charles hit play and the music began. Much to everyone's surprise, Bobby and Diane sounded very good together, even considering it was recorded on Bobby's affordable TEAC cassette deck and two bargain Shure SM57 dynamic instrument microphones. Bobby's tone was very nice, and Diane's technique was very good and very smooth to the ear. I think everyone was quite surprised, as Bobby had only been playing a few weeks with some lessons at the university and in the band at middle school, but they could all tell that Bobby had been practicing and working hard to get back to the 3 years of grade school playing he let pass by. Diane's playing was maturing, as she started in grade school but had not stopped and was about 3 years ahead of Bobby in practice time. Everyone was impressed, especially Bill and Mary Mason, his parents. At the end of the recording, Charles raised his hand and said, "I can tell you that I know of a good investment when I see one, and Bobby, you are it," said Charles. Everyone started applauding. Charles raised his hand again. "Now, you new boys who are just starting out, the first thing you must not do is get discouraged as the beginning is the hardest. It would be like asking a high school baseball player to hit a home run in Wrigley Field in every at-bat. Everything worth doing is worth doing well, and to do it well, it takes time and perseverance. There is no free lunch, but once you learn the basics, the faster you will get better. Do not quit, as everyone who has played an instrument started where you are today. Just stay with it, and after a year, you will see, feel, and hear major improvement. I in hopes that you will do that, and we can be listening to your player in this very room very soon," added Charles with a big smile. "Now, anyone's for second on ice cream? Head back across the foyer," prodded Charles. Bobby asked Charles if he could rewind the tape and let him listen again, which he did, and he showed Bobby how to rewind it. Everyone headed back to the ice cream room except Bobby, his parents, and Marshall Dade. They all listened to the tape 2 more times and all marveled at the sound of the magical M9s as much as Bobby and Diane's playing. Now Bobby wished Diane had come, but she would hear it another time and even a newer recording for sure. Marshall asked Bobby about the recording equipment he had and said he was going to talk to his dad about setting up something at his home as well. He told Marshall that the folks at Cook's Music Store helped him get the right gear for starting out, and that he got help from the manager of the university radio station as well. Bobby said he would like to go down with Marshall if he was going to do something about recording his drum playing. Something new to learn how to mic a drum kit is different than just recording 2 instruments for sure. After a brief conversation with Marshall's dad, Douglas, he was all in on the recording thing as well, and when they went, Bobby should come with them. A plan was in place for tomorrow after church and lunch. Bobby would be picked up at 2 p.m. Just a little more ice cream for the boys, as the adults were finished and were just conversing about the concert and the boys getting their new instruments. Tonight, it was hoped, would be some motivation for the new boys to work really hard. After about 30 minutes more, the family said thanks to the Millers for their kindness and hospitality and said good night. The Masons and the Dades made sure to tell the boys it was great to meet them and their families, and to keep practicing, just not tonight as it was late. They all told Bobby they really liked his and Diane's playing. Their comments made Bobby feel like he was making progress. and he was sure doing that.